Coming up on More Than Before.
Always looking forward and saying, okay, who can help me? Sometimes we have to open ourselves up and be vulnerable and ask for help.
This is More Than Before with Nathan Cook.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so excited to have one of my really good friends on today. She is the owner and principal broker at Insurance by Design here in Oregon. She is a half marathon runner. She's run quite a few Spartan races from what I've seen, which is insane to me. She's a best-selling author. She's a foodie. She has her own line of spirits, which is pretty amazing. She has a lady gin, a rye whiskey. She's got so much going on in her life. She's got a podcast that you should go check out, Like the Way You Drink. But you know what? What I love most about her is her heart to serve people in our community. She is a master educator, an amazing communicator, but most of all, she is my good friend. Gladys Boutwell, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Nathan. You are so awesome. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on today. This is a lot of fun. I know we don't hang out as much as we used to after COVID. It just ruined everything for us, but that's okay. We're still in communication, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because there are people in my life who have really seen me from the beginning, right? Like a lot of you guys listening, a lot of you guys watching, you're getting to see the better portion of my communication skills. Gladys was there at the beginning, you know, no horrible, like, you know, if she hadn't been there, people would have probably been throwing rocks. But no, Gladys is one of those people that from early on in my career. She has been there walking with me. She is such a nurturing heart that wants people to be the best, to show up as really in the best capacity that they can. And she's also a really good connector. I can't tell you the number of times where Gladys and I would be sitting down either at a networking event or a lunch or coffee, and she'd say, oh, I know exactly who you need to talk to. Here, go talk to this person. I'm going to call them right now. Or like there's someone across the room. She's like, oh, you need to meet this person. And she grabs your hand and she runs you across the room to introduce you. Gladys is someone who is an advocate. Overall, that is probably the biggest word, educator, advocate. That's what I would say that she is. And you guys are going to absolutely fall in love with her. And I can't wait to dive into your story. Before we get into a little of the backdrop of kind of where you came from and all that, Gladys, where are you today? Like, what are you doing in your life? I said a lot of things that you are doing, but what are you most passionate about right now in your work and in your life?
Oh my goodness. One of the things that it's been my driver when I got into insurance, it was by fluke. But what kept me in insurance was two of my biggest values is education. So being able to help others be educated on something. In this case, it happened to be insurance and helping others. And I got to do that through insurance. That's why I stayed. And it wasn't until I guess a year into it that I went, oh, well, I kind of like this. I really enjoy this. I'm helping people and I'm educating them and they're better for it. And that was my first book that I wrote, was helping individuals understand their health insurance. So I wrote Health Insurance Secrets Revealed so that people could understand, because there was nothing out there that really helped them understand their insurance, because insurance can be so complicated and I wanted to simplify it. So I'm always saying employee benefits simplified. I want people to understand it. I try to put it in, if somebody can understand the concept, when they get their explanation of benefits, it's all these numbers and all these codes, they can at least understand where it's coming from. So that's one thing that I continue to do is education. And I do that in various ways. I now, because a lot of my clients want videos, they love getting videos where I'm explaining things, because they can stop it. They can, rewind it. They can have that throughout the year, not just once a year when I'm explaining their benefits. They get to keep that. So that's something that I'm doing now for a lot of my clients, and they love that. They're like, can you do those videos? Even if I meet with them, they're like, can you do a video? Sure. So videos, communication. I love sending out a magazine. It's called Business in Action, where business owners get different information on marketing, on sales, on leadership, on how to show their employees how much they care. So that's the other thing. Is my second book is 101 Creative Ways to Attract and Retain Quality Staff, is providing employers with that information on how they can show their employees how much they care.
Mm.
Because if, people they'll not remember a lot of things, but if they know that you care, one, they're going to stick around, two, that you're going to be memorable. And so those are the things that I'm trying to do, continue to grow my business, pick up more clients. When I have clients that are coming to me, they're reaching out because they have seen me speak or because of the relationships that I have built. And my clients are talking about me and they're going, oh, well, so-and-so said I should talk to you because of XYZ. And then it's like, well, what are the pain points? Asking them the questions, and being able to uncover what they need and why they need it. And being able to do that makes me feel good. It's like, so I feel like I'm giving back. And sometimes the giving back is telling them, what you have is the best thing for you. Stay right there. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. And this is the reason why I did that today. I'm like, you really should stay there because of the XYZs, even though it's a little bit more, but because of these things. And they're like, okay, let me review and let me think about it. I'll get back to you. That's where I'm at. Just that having fun in what I'm doing. And I think that's so important. We got to enjoy what we're doing. Just like with my podcast, Like the Way You Drink. We tell people, if you don't like what you're drinking, don't drink it. You have to like what you're drinking and enjoying it, savoring it and picking up those nuances, those notes, and pairing it with food, so those are kind of the fun things that I'm doing right now. They're just fun stuff.
I love it. It's so funny because as you listen to her talk about insurance, like there are people that, you a lot of people can be passionate about a marriage. A lot of people can be passionate about dogs and giraffes or hippos or money. Like there's a lot of things that people are passionate about. But when people say the word insurance, people are like, yeah, I don't think anyone's actually passionate about that. No. Gladys is like nerdy. She gets nerdy when it comes to insurance. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I love you so much, Gladys, because you truly have a niche here. Even when Willow and I were early on in our marriage and we were trying to figure out stuff like insurance claims, and like you weren't even like our agent or anything. And I was like, Gladys, I'm way over my head. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm an idiot on paper. Please explain to me in Lego colors of what this means. And she is so patient. She would sit down with me and she would walk me through this process of what it was that we had, what it was that we needed. And that's what I love about Gladys. She truly is. I think that's what's great about the two books that you've written. You have one book specifically for consumers, and you have another book that you could say is specifically for the business owner of how to really bridge the gap between customer and employer or employee and customer. And that is, it's such an amazing gift that you have to be able to bridge that gap and that span. I don't think anyone ever wakes up one morning, like, 5 years old, and they're like, you know what, Mom, I want to be an insurance broker. I want to, maybe Wonder Woman, Gladys, I think, cause you're kind of Wonder Woman, I think. Like, where did you grow up, and what was life like for you early on?
So I grew up in East LA. So that's Southern California. It was a very Latino neighborhood. But I did go through elementary school in my local elementary school. But for junior high and high school, I was bussed out of the inner city to go to a very nice neighborhood to go to school. I mean, my junior high is like a few blocks away where they have the LA Open golf tournament. In junior high, we never did any type of fundraiser because our fundraiser was that week when the LA Open was there, we would charge for parking. And so they would use our field and the whole space to park cars for dirt cheap. But for us, it was a lot because it was 5 days of X number of vehicles. So that was our fundraising. That's the neighborhood I grew up in. Well, I went to school. I didn't grow up there. I went to school. And my high school was by the beach. So it was, I was spoiled in that respect, that where I went to school. But the positive of that was that I had a variety of different friends. My aunt used to call us the United Nations because we were a little bit of everything. I was the only Latina in my group, but we had Japanese, Korean, Jewish, one girl from Siberia, somebody else from South Africa. So we were just this variety of mixed cultures. And so I grew up very much being exposed to different types of food and languages. And of course, I grew up speaking Spanish. Spanish was my first language. I learned to read and write Spanish and English from kindergarten. By second grade, I was the translator for my teachers. Wow. So here I was, my second grader, and I was doing all this translation. I mean, the teachers took a lot of trust in that. One, I was going to translate correctly. And number two, that I was going to keep the information confidential, because this is information from the teacher to the parents about their child, my classmates. And so from there on, I was, I started to translate. And I found out years later that I was allowed to go to my junior high because we were being bossed. And my mom, ultra conservative Latina, was not going to go. Well, my brother, who's 10 years older, was the one that convinced her that, no, let her do this. Let her go there. And his reasoning was, she has to catch the bus every day at 6:15 in the morning. So if she misses the bus, she's not going to school. And number two, she has to catch the bus at 3:15 coming back. If she misses the bus, you're going to know, so mom's all, oh, yeah, okay. So it was my brother that convinced my mom to allow me to go to my junior high and high school. Wow. And between 7th and 8th grade, because I was getting up at 5 in the morning to take a 6:10 bus, it was like, oh no, I want my sleep. So during that 7th to 8th grade, I went to summer school locally, and I was like, you know what? I kind of like my school. So I said, just suck it up, buttercup, and just do it. So I had perfect attendance in junior high, not in high school. I did miss because I was sick. But it was those friends that I met when I was in 7th grade, 12 years old. They're my core friends. They're still my friends today. And I still have some friends from elementary school that I still talk to today. So that's like, for me, that's special to be able to have those friends that I've known for so long that I can pick up the phone, reach out to them, and they're there for me. That's been, pretty special, to say, hey, these are people that I had lost track of for a few years, but once we reconnected, it was like nothing ever changed. So that's kind of my background, where I grew up, single mom. It was three of us that grew up together, plus my cousin. So it was four of us that grew up together. And my aunts is my mom and my aunt. And my aunt was the one that took care of the household, did all the cooking and household stuff. My mom's the one that went out and worked. And my cousin and I were 6 years apart. We grew up together. My sister got married, and then my brother's 10 years older. So then it was just kind of this different, modern family, if you will, a little different, but it worked for us.
That's so amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, your mom was a seamstress, wasn't she?
She was, yes. She worked doing a lot of cocktail dresses, and it was so much fun sometimes watching shows. I remember this one particular time watching Fantasy Island, and this one lady comes out with this cocktail dress, and I was like, oh, Mom, your dress. It was the style she had made. And so in my opinion, that was my mom's dress on Fantasy Island, but it was these beautiful cocktail dresses. So she made I designed, she made my prom dress. She made my graduation dress for 6th grade, 9th grade, and 12th grade. And when I was looking at getting married, she's all, oh no, not gonna, no. She's all, I'm not doing it. She goes, I'll alter it. You're too picky, not making your dress. But she did have a bridal shop at one point. So she did make wedding dresses and the bridesmaids dresses. And so she's, my mom was an entrepreneur. She did, even though she worked for somebody for a long time, she did say, you know what, at one point, I'm going to do my own thing. And so she had a very strong work ethic, worked really hard to provide and to always be doing the right thing. And she was so specific on how she did things that she would always make sure that everything was nicely cleaned for the next person to take it on. So that way they didn't have all the threads coming off the dress. It was like, that's how particular she was. And sometimes I think, oh, that's where I get my OCD from, is mom.
Oh man, I have fond memories of you around your mom, and I was able to meet your mom, and she had such a kind heart. But and I want to go into this maybe a little bit later of that season of life where you really got to kindle that relationship with your mom, and it was so strong. I am curious, when you were growing up and seeing your mom work as a single as a single parent. I mean, it must have been difficult, I would imagine, or maybe even at the time you didn't quite understand. I feel like some of us don't, because we're just kind of kids and we only care about our sphere and our circles. What are some of those lessons that maybe you've really gleaned even more so nowadays than when you were a kid? Of, like you said, your mom's work ethic, which I think is huge, but what are some of those other things that you were really able to grasp on that your mom really instilled in you that made you such a successful woman that you are today?
Well, when I was little, I was very shy.
Which is very surprising, but like she does not reek of any shyness. She is everything but shy.
But it was my mom. She would force me, go ask some this. And I'm like, I don't want to, but I would go and I would be embarrassed, but I would go and ask the question, whether it was directions or where something was, or if somebody was there or whatever it was. I was the one that had to do it. And she would send me, even though she could do it. No, she would send me. And so it forced me to be a little bit more of an extrovert. So it was a forced thing. Mm. And with that, it helped me really come out of my shell and feel comfortable in being able to talk to people. Even if I was inside just mortified, that it's like, well, I still have to do it, And so that was one thing, is being uncomfortable, but still doing it. Mm. So that was one thing. The other thing is watching how hard she worked. It was like, it just was the thing to do. But when I was little, she would take me to work. So she would put down my blankie, and that was my space, the width of the blankie, that box, that was my space. I was not allowed outside that space. But it taught me that it's like, what? Even though she was working, she was doing whatever she needed to do to make sure that I was taken care of while she worked. Mm. And that was another thing that was like, man, thinking outside the box. And that was one of the things in my book is, having a daycare, or bring your kid to work, in case of emergency, or just because, you want them to see what you do, and that way they can learn from us. So that's another thing. And she, when I needed her there, she was there. She did go to if she couldn't, she would send my aunt, to go to my parent-teacher conference. But she tried to go to my concerts, because I was in orchestra. I played the violin through, into high school. She would always go to my concerts. She was always there. And I remember in 6th grade, because again, ultra-conservative mom, there was a camping trip. And I was like, oh yeah, mom's going to say no. And my 6th grade teacher was like, why not? And I said, because it's 3 days. No, I know what mom's going to say. And so my teacher, being my teacher, she went to mom and said, would you be a chaperone? And mom's like, sure. So now, because mom was a chaperone, she was going, therefore I got to go, because mom chaperoned. She was there. My friends loved my mom, even though she was so strict. Her thing with my friends was, so long as I can see you, whatever, be kids, do your thing, bounce around, do whatever, but don't go out of my sight. That was mom's thing. And if it's like, well, can we go get ice cream, or can we go do this? Mom would not say no. She'd go, okay. And she was there with us. And my friends are like, well, my parents would never do this. And it's like, well, mom's just wanting to make sure that we were safe. But she also wanted us to be kids. And it wasn't until I was older that I learned to appreciate that about her, is let the kids be kids, so long as they're safe, they're not doing anything silly, but also let them be themselves and just be a chaperone, And so that was another thing that I didn't realize and didn't appreciate, because she was so strict that I didn't know that it's like, this is a good thing. All I thought was like, I got to hang out with my friends, because mom's here.
Oh, I love that so much. You've had some amazing people who have really spoken into your life. You've had a number of teachers, which I don't know. It's kind of funny looking back on your life, the teachers who have had a massive influence in your life, your mom having a massive influence on your life, your mom with the work ethic, but also your teachers have really spoken into throughout your life. One of them that was kind of ringing a bell to me was Mrs. Yamaguchi. And what was it about that relationship? Like, 'cause she was super hard on you. But what was surprising to you about maybe like how she influenced you, how she was able to really push you out, and to realize that maybe that not only was she an advocate for you, but you could be an advocate for others?
She was more reserved. She wasn't the one that was like, oh, rah, rah. No, she was that, quieter teacher that observed. And when there was a situation that happened that it's like, oh, well, some of my classmates didn't agree with me, but that didn't mean I was wrong. It just meant that I didn't agree with them. We had different viewpoints on something. And she spoke to them and said, okay, well, and had this frank conversation of, why is this wrong? It's not wrong. It's just different.
Mm.
And she supported me on that. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is okay. I can speak up. I can speak up for myself was my thought. I didn't realize that I could speak up for myself. I was kind of like being ratted out without having the opportunity to speak on my behalf, and she spoke on my behalf. And that was like something that I realized, like, oh wow, you speak up for the little person. You speak up for the person that can't speak for themselves. Especially if there's something that you understand where they're coming from. You understand that it's like, hey, you don't have to agree with them, but that doesn't mean you disrespect them. That doesn't mean that you speak behind their back. You just have to have the conversation. And she and I also had the conversation before she had the conversation with the other kids. And then she kind of just brought us together, like, it's okay. And then the students were like, all right, fine. Well, and she also pushed me. I mean, she a lot of, schooling. So that was kind of she knew the educational piece, but she also had that interpersonal side of her that helped us be able to talk through things. So that was one thing that I really, truly appreciate about her.
So you graduated from high school. How do you end up in corporate America? Because I mean, I find that part of your life really fascinating, and it's interesting because you find seeds of success throughout your life, and there's like small little seeds where you go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Your mom working really, really hard, your love for education, but what brought you to a place of working extremely hard in corporate America? How did you get to that place in life?
So after I knew that after I got out of high school, I couldn't go to the school I wanted to go to. We had moved, and of course I had to go where mom was going. And so it was like this place of, well, what do I do now? I can't go where I want to go. And so I got my associate's degree, which helped me get a job. It was nothing major, which got me into another job. But being able to get the experience, that was it. Because I had the background in my mom being a seamstress, I was in the industry. I became a project manager at a company that they refurbished clothing. And so I got to run that for a little bit, but I knew that's not where I wanted to stay. So then with my associate's degree, I had done, the accounting side, and I understood a lot of the financial services pieces of it. So I got a job doing accounts payable. Then from there, I learned the accounts receivable. Then I learned to help the bookkeeper, and then I helped the receptionist. So I was like dabbling into everything because I just learned it and did it. So my education piece, me being a learner, a very strong learner when you look at strengths. And so I was learning and I was doing, and I had a boss there that helped me get another job that was requiring a master's degree. Well, I didn't even have my bachelor's at that point, but I spoke Spanish. I spoke French. I had the accounting background that they were looking for. And so I got the job because of the recommendation from this boss that had worked for the company. She had recommended me. And their caveat was, well, you have to go get your degree, which I was already looking at. So I was working full time and going to school. And I did international credit and collections. And that was like a blast. And then I was learning Portuguese at that point. My French and my Portuguese at this point, it's very bad. My Spanish has always stayed. But being able to use my experience to get a job was amazing, with some caveats in there. And then I went to work for a major payroll company. I was there for 13 years, and I just moved up the ranks. I just kept learning and kept applying the lessons I had learned. I had some really good bosses that really guided me and helped me. And I did a lot of asking of questions. If I saw there was a team lead position, I interviewed the boss that was hiring. And my questions was, what are you looking for? What are the qualities that you want? What is the personality? What are the experiences? And I would tell them, I'm not going to apply for the job, but I need to understand what you're looking for. So one, I know if this is a job I would like in the future, and two, so that I could prepare for it, so that when this position comes up 6 months or a year down the line, I'm going to be ready. And so that helped me grow into those higher positions and always looking at what I brought to the table.
Mm.
And one of the positions that I moved into is a manager in training. Mind you, this was years into it. And I would always ask, what are you looking for? What do you need? And this is what I'm bringing to the table. And yes, I don't have this and this, but I can learn it, but I'm strong here and here. And the reason I got that job amongst the 7 of us that had applied is that what I brought to the table was that I was saying, this is what I bring to the table, not what is the job giving to me. It's what I'm giving to the job and the organization and all the questions I was asking and what they were looking for. And so then, I just continued growing. So it's been an interesting field to be in financial services until I got laid off 3 times, within the company. And then the last time was in Texas. So they moved me from California, from one department to another, 2 layoffs within 6 months, and then a transfer to Texas. And I was out there for 3.5 years, got laid off again. And I'm like, okay, where to now? And moved to Oregon when I became my mom's full-time caregiver. And I met you shortly after that. And then, of course, you met my mama. And I, got certified. I'm like, what am I going to do? And fell into insurance by fluke. It was totally by fluke. And then it's back in 2013 is when I got into insurance. And it was, I stayed. It was like, oh, I kind of like this. But I think you and I met in 2012, I think it was when you and I met.
Yeah, right at the start of 2013, where we both went to a training together. And it was so funny because I have this picture of us, and I didn't know you at the time that the picture was taking place, but we were kind of like rooftop area. I thought it was rooftop area, but as I look back and I understand the layout of that place, we were kind of like poolside or something like that. And everyone was hanging out, and I was like greener than green. Like, I didn't even know what we were doing there. I still didn't know who John Maxwell was at the time. Like, it was really funny. And so as I look at this picture, we hadn't met, but we were in the same picture together. And a mutual friend of ours, Torino, he said, hey, when you're there, you got to meet Gladys. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't know how to meet Gladys. But so what's funny is, like, I don't know if we ever really connected at that first event, really. It wasn't until later on that year, a couple months later, where we were in Guatemala, and you're kind of doing this 2-handed mission thing of getting to see your family, but also getting to do some training. It was the first huge country transformations that the Maxwell Leadership Organization was doing. And that was the moment where we actually got to connect, and I actually got to know you, got to see you. And I was like, oh, this gal's crazy. Awesome. Like, we need to connect. And if I get lost here in Guatemala, she's going to help me out. In fact, it's really funny because now that you have your own gin and you have your own whiskey, I actually still have a little bottle of rum that you purchased for me when we were there. Because I don't know, I was greener than green. I was like, do you get in trouble for buying alcohol? Do you, like, I don't know, what can you buy when you're in another country? Because I hadn't traveled that much. And so Gladys opened my world. She opened my life to a whole new world of things. So I find it fascinating that when we first meet people, we almost kind of see them as the expert in that world that they introduce themselves at. Like, I didn't know that you had just started in the insurance world, but yet you had such a confidence about you. In fact, since I've known you, you have this confidence about you. And, if you ever get to meet Gladys in person, she is a compact powerhouse. Like, she walks in her room, you're like, oh, she's a cute little lady. And then she starts talking, you're like, whoa, like, she's got a lot of energy, and she knows where she's going. Where does that confidence come from? Because I think a lot of people lack confidence today, especially in what they do and how they show up. You have a ball of confidence when you walk into a room. How has that always been there? Did you have to create that? Where does that come from?
I don't know where it came from at some point, but what I have realized is that I've learned to know who I am. what's important to me. And when I know a subject matter or when I understand something, then that makes it so much easier. I know what I know, and there's a lot of things I don't know. Believe me, there's a lot of things I have no clue about. And I can admit, it's like, yeah, I know nothing about that. But I know enough about certain things that I'm like, yeah, I know enough to be dangerous. But feeling confident that I know what I do know, and I'm confident in that. So when I walk in, it's like, hey, this is who I am. Who am I going to meet here? When I go to a networking event, it's who do I get to meet? Who can I connect with? Who can I build a relationship that can be a good thing? So that's when I walk in, it's about meeting others. So I make it about others. And I think that's what makes it easier. I'm going to ask questions about them. What is it that drives them? What do they need? What do they want? Who are they needing to connect with? And if I know somebody, I'm going to go, oh, well, let me look at my people. Let me look at who I know. Or sometimes it's immediately I know who to connect them with. And so it's the feeling that I have something to give makes it that much easier. And there's things about us, each one of us, that there's a lot that we can give. We just don't know it. And it's as you're talking to people, that's where you get to know. It's like, oh, this is where I can help them. For example, I have an insurance agent that I had said to her, I don't think I'll ever send anything to you. I don't see it because I have my connections here. And as you know, and I had met with her that one time, that I met with her another time, and she was very giddy about those that are in the hair industry that have salons, and because she had been a hairdresser at one point, she understood salons very well. And then she got so excited and so giddy about it that I was like, okay. Well, a few weeks later, I'm talking to a salon owner, and she says, well, I need to review my insurance. And I said, I got the person for you. It was that immediate. The person that I had said to her, I don't think I will ever send you anything. Here I am connecting her and and they got along just great. So they're still going through the process, what have you, because it is a process. But it's that connection. That's what makes me feel like I can do whatever. I can talk to whomever because I'm looking out for them. What is it that they need? So that's what drives me on that front of confidence, if you will.
I love that. I don't know if you ever, I don't know why I just had this picture of, I don't know if you ever played the game BS. We won't say what the actual name is called, but this game BS, essentially you have to put these cards on top of it's a normal playing deck, and you put the cards on top one at a time, and each person puts them down, but you can lie. You can lie and say, oh, well, you put this down. Like the true skilled people, or the jerks, that would be me. We just keep grabbing all the cards until we have all of the cards. And then we just keep putting down cards, and we can call BS on everyone at the table because we know we have all the cards. And I don't know. There's just really funny visual I have of Gladys having all the cards. It's not that she necessarily has all the information, but she has an answer. She knows someone that can get you an answer to the things that you need, which I think is why you really have been pinnacle in the community. In fact, Familias en Asociación presented you with the Madrina de Salud Award. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know what that is, I would love for you to explain why that recognition is so important, and what did that recognition mean to you in your life? Because it goes beyond doing something like an achievement. It really is a person. It's a personal thing of who you are, of why that matters so much.
So it was in 2013 when I started with insurance, got a little bit more into it, 2013, 2014, 2015. Well, when I was because I speak Spanish, I was getting invited. So this nonprofit, and then because of them, then I got connected with another nonprofit. So Familias en Acción is a nonprofit, and they said, can you come and help our community? And I was like, sure. So I spent time educating, like I do, and talking to them and helping them and doing the things and the enrollments. And some of them is like, no, you're good where you're at, but still doing that education piece and being available to them. And they could call on me. And so I was there, it's like, can you come back? Sure. So doing that for me was just, this is what I do. I'm educating, I'm helping, I'm enrolling. That's who I am. But then they said, oh, we're going to give you an award. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, okay, for what? I was like, what award for what? I didn't understand. And so it's like, all right, I'm getting an award, no big deal. So I go to this, and it's a big deal, and they give awards to businesses and individuals, what have you. Well, when they started saying the things that I was doing, I was like, oh, I didn't realize this. And it was for health equity in the state of Oregon for Latinos. So what they were explaining is that I was focused on the Latino population in educating them in understanding their insurance so that they knew what they were getting. They knew what they had access to. They understood why, and they understood how to properly use it. So it was trying to have that equity with everybody else. So leveling that playing field for the Latinos in a community.
Mm.
And it wasn't until then, and my mom would always tease me. She's like, how many blessings did you get today? I get home, it's like, okay. But it wasn't until then that I really realized that I was making a difference in my community. I didn't realize it. It was like I was just doing what I thought I needed to do, was educate and help and enroll and get people their tax credits. But that was like a wow moment for me, that I was like, that really meant something to me. It wasn't just a sales award, which I've gotten sales awards, but this was making a difference, made a difference in me, and that was like, wow. I'm like, I embraced my people even more, saying, wow, I didn't realize that in all the years that I've been speaking in both languages, this is the first time I'm actually helping a community of people. And because I speak Spanish, and I'm one of the few that do health insurance, there's a lot of agents that speak Spanish, but on the health insurance, there's not that many. I'm connected with dialysis centers, with social workers at all the hospitals in Portland. They call me when they need a Spanish speaking person that needs health insurance. They call me, and all these different nonprofits. It's like they're coming to me, and I'm going, oh, wow, that's me right here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for you to be operating in your strengths, because really when you are who you're supposed to be, you're operating in your strengths, and it's fun to you. You're doing the things that you love. When I'm coaching, when I'm on stage and I'm speaking on things that I'm actually passionate about, it's easy. Like I was just interviewed earlier today by someone, and I was like trying to stop myself from talking, because you get on that moment. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Gladys. When you start talking about insurance, like you gotta make sure you lasso her, otherwise she's gone. She's like, you might lose an hour of your day, not lose, but you're gonna invest an hour of your day learning about what she has to say. But that's one of the things about you, is this piece of advocacy, is like, there's a lot of information out there. There's information out there that you can learn, but you have to hunt through, you have to sift through what is right. There's a lot of falsities that are out there. There's a lot of scams that are out there. And one of the things about you that I love so much is that you truly are an advocate. You have the information from the business side of things, and then you give it to people in such a way that you allow them to make the decision for themselves, to have the options, which is so beautiful. There was a point in your career where you actually had to step away from corporate America, specifically to take care of your mom.
Yeah.
And you being such a hard runner, and your mom being a hard runner too, running 1,000,000 miles an hour, there was a moment where you had to actually slow down and learn to enjoy life. Can you talk a little bit about that period of your life where you were forced to slow down and truly be present with your mom? And what did that do for you moving forward? Because today you're a different person than when I first met you.
Oh, yeah.
Your hair is still on fire today. It's just maybe not way behind you. Now it's just kind of a nice ball of flame on top. You know how to rest, and you know how to sit. What was that time period like with your mom that allowed you to do that? And how is that translated forward into really being present now?
So my mom was a go, go, go. I was go, go, go. And when my mom's health, kind of declined, then I was always her caregiver, but this became a little bit more. She needed more help. I needed to, hold her hand to make sure that she didn't fall over. And it was November when we moved to Oregon. And of course, Pacific Northwest, we get the seasons, we get the colors. And so for me, when I'm going somewhere, I'm walking, I'm going somewhere. I'm not just walking, strolling. No, there's a reason I'm going somewhere. When I go on vacation, I want to get there and be on vacation, not road tripping it. It was very different. And so I'm like going, and mom's like, slowing down and looking at the leaves and like, oh, so pretty, and touching the brown leaf now, because then she's crumbling it and she's looking at how pretty, the colors were with the orange and the reds. And I'm like, wait, what? And I realized, like, oh, we're just going out on a walk. We can like stop and smell the roses, or in this case, look at all the colors and take a picture and really enjoy the walk. It was like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. Well, this is different. And having those walks with mom. And then, of course, she then ended up in a wheelchair, where it was because she could still walk, but she could only walk so many feet that it was just easier to get her in the wheelchair to move her along. But I remember this one time she wanted this one ice cream. She saw the magazine. She folded it and handed it over to me. And I was like, what? And she pointed to it. And I said, you want that? And she goes, yeah. And it was this ice cream. Forgot what it was, but it was this ice cream. And I was like, all right. So I said, okay, let's go. And she goes, what? I said, well, we're going to go get your ice cream. And she's all, okay. So we go outside and she goes towards the car and she goes, I go, where are you going? She goes, are we going to the store? I said, oh no, we're walking. You want the ice cream? You're walking. So we took our time and we went across the street and across the parking lot to what was it's now Safeway, but it was a local market at the time. And so I sat her down. They had a little coffee area, so I sat her down there. I went and got the ice cream, paid for it, and they came over and got her ice cream, and she got to enjoy it. And then, of course, we walked back. But I told her, I said, you want the ice cream? You're walking. We're not just going to take the car. But those are memories of learning to appreciate the time, learning to appreciate that sometimes we do need to slow down. And I'm still a go. And I have a hard time sitting down. I really do. Even when I'm watching TV, I'm standing up, I'm doing the thing. But if I'm at the river, I want to enjoy that time. If I'm outside, like watching the all the colors from the borealis that we had a month ago, and being able to just 10 o'clock at night, just being outside and enjoying the time and taking the pictures and hearing the crickets, outside. It was just a time of peace, if you will, just my time, my space. And I try to do that. Sometimes it's just outside my office, having lunch under the tree, or sitting on the grass. And even if it's only 15, 20 minutes, that's my time. And when I do that, I remember mom, that it's like, it's okay to slow down and enjoy the time. And having that time with my mom, that's like the best thing that could have happened to me, to be able to slow down and not just lose her, because she passed away 8 years ago, and not having had that time with her. Got to have happy time where before she got really sick and was more harder to move around, to be able to go out and have fun with her and take her to my clients' appointments and open enrollment events, and just having her out there, just people watch. So yeah, that was a special time.
I love that so much. Yeah, you truly have had some amazing experiences in life, and I think a lot of experiences doesn't come without its risk. A lot of people, and I've heard you talk about this before, but a lot of people are afraid to move forward in their life because they're afraid to fail. And I don't know, maybe I think we all kind of have a little bit of that fear inside of us. I think when you meet Gladys, though, like she just seems like this one, like I said before, Wonder Woman. She's like made of steel. Like she just shows up and like gung ho, like let's go. What does that look like to move through fear? Because I think we all have some fears in life. What are some of the fears of failure that you've had to move through to go, man, I could fail at this, but ultimately at the end, because I know this is why I want to move forward. How have you been able to move through some of your greatest fears of failure?
Oh, well, one of the things that I thought that I knew about, and I instilled that on when I had my teams and I was in corporate America, was that it was always okay to make a mistake. I wanted that I better be the first one to know about that mistake. That was important for me. It's like I better, and it was like, hey, is the process wrong? Well, first, did you follow the process? Yes or no? And if you follow the process, is the process wrong? If the process is wrong, how do we fix it? And if you didn't follow the process, then why not? And how do we do that? How do we make a change so that not only that person, but nobody else makes that same mistake? And they were allowed to make that mistake. once. They can make a different mistake. That was okay, but just not the same mistake, because now we have a problem. And it's the same thing. It's sometimes we learn more from our mistakes than doing everything right. And I was told many years ago at one job, it's like, you like making mistakes. And I said, I don't. But I want to know the mistakes that could happen, the things that could go wrong. So when the credit manager isn't here, I know where to go to fix it. So that's been my for a long time was if this doesn't work out, then I have to go back and look, why didn't it work? What could I have done differently? What did I learn from it? And what could I do better next time? And so utilizing that failure as a way to say, all right, dust it off. It didn't work out. Go cry if you need to. Suck it up, buttercup. Let's move on. How do we fix it now? And so it goes from to let's fix it and let's move forward. And if I can do that for my associates when I have them, then I'm going to do that for myself too. And one of them was, starting my own agency. That was very fearful. It's like, oh my goodness, because I was working for another organization and it wasn't a good fit. And so I had to go off on my own and not knowing, am I going to make it or not make it? And my thought is, I'm going to be a success. It's just, I have the know-how. I have the business background. I have the relationships. That the relationships were not going to change. It was now starting from scratch. So in 2019, but 2020 was my first full year in my own practice. Was I'm going to make a profit. That was my thought. Even with COVID, yes, it was. But again, it was the relationships and having good people around you, and saying, okay, what could go wrong is another way to say, all right, somebody's got my back, somebody's got me, and talking to people, it's like, hey, I might need your support in these areas, which is really hard for me to do, but I have learned that I need to do that. It's like, hey, if something goes wrong, could you this? And people like, I got you. And so but it's still scary sometimes to step out there and, having those ways of, well, you know what, let me have some things back here that are gonna be, this is if this and that, that are gonna help me out. If things don't go right, at least I have my savings over here that's gonna help cover that. Right. Worst case scenario, I can go get a job.
Yeah.
So it was always that mentality of it's gonna work, and if it doesn't, what can I learn, and if not, what's an alternative? What else can I do?
I love that so much. Gladys, I have loved our time here so much. I do have one more question for you before we end. For those of you listening, I want to encourage you, go check out her podcast. If you have any questions about business insurance, employee benefits, you can reach out to her. You can go grab her books. They are absolutely amazing. She has a wealth of knowledge. And one of the things I love about her is she's not content with just writing something and putting something out there and then leaving it there. She actually is really good at being up to date and constantly looking for changes in what's actually happening. It's important to have someone in your corner like Gladys. So if you want to contact her, you can find her information in the show notes here, or you can also go to insurancedesignpros.com. And before we wrap up here, Gladys, there was a point, and it was really surprising to me to kind of find this out. There was a point that you were kind of at your lowest and you found yourself homeless. I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was embarrassing to tell people where you're at. I'm curious, what helped you move through that period in your life? And what would you say to someone who's trying to keep up that facade, that face of like, everything's okay, I've got it all together, when deep down inside, it feels like everything is crumbling around them? Like, how did you move through that? And how would you encourage someone that maybe is in that space today?
Well, at the time I was in junior high. And so, my mom and we just slept in the car, and she made sure that I got to the bus stop every day. I wasn't homeless for too long, because it's like mom was not going to let that happen for too long, but we were just finding a spot, and putting up, covering the windows and sleeping in the car. And then I remember her taking me to one of her good friends' house so that I could shower and, have a home cooked meal versus just, something that we're getting at takeout or at the supermarket that we could eat like that. So that was really hard time, because when you're a teenager and not wanting my friends to know that I was homeless, that was really hard, having them not know what I was going through. I never shared that with them. And seeing, okay, well, if this happens, then what, where are we going to be? Am I going to be able to stay in school? But that was one thing. And even during that time, I never missed school. That was my focus, was school, just focused in school, because that was my happy time. But and then mom finding a place, okay, where are we going to move? And so mom was doing her thing on the background, making sure that we ended up with the place, and she did what she needed to do. But always looking forward and saying, okay, who can help me? Sometimes we have to open ourselves up and be vulnerable and ask for help. And that doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean that we're beggars. It's like, sometimes it's like with anything. If we're having a surgery, sometimes we have to allow others to help us. I mean, when I had ankle surgery, my gym folks for 2 weeks delivered food to me. They made sure that I was okay, sent me texts. One of them even brought me flowers with the tray of all the foods. And that was invaluable, to have people step in and step out for me. That was huge. And being, a teenager and having all this happen, it was like uncomfortable and embarrassing, but it was like, okay, we're just going to get through it and still have a sense of normalcy. This is normal. Going to school is still normal. Doing the things is still normal. So those things stayed the same, and that helped, because you have a schedule. And when you have a schedule with certain things, that helps say this is okay. It's a period of the time. We're gonna get through it. I don't know how, but then taking the steps forward. And in this case, my mom took the steps to get us out of that situation and into a house that was a lot farther away from me, but she still got me to my bus stop. And we couldn't, there was a train that would pass, so we had to get past that train before it started. So I had to get up even earlier to make sure that we got through that a lot easier, a lot sooner. And mom got up early with me to make sure that I got to the bus stop and she still got to work. So it's you just make do, just adjust.
I love it. You got to wake up early to beat the train. Oh my goodness. There's so many good things about what you just said, and the entire conversation. I want you guys to go back and listen to this, because truly, especially this last portion of, we've talked about, Gladys, I truly do see you as an advocate for people. But not only have you been an advocate for people, but people have been an advocate for you throughout your entire life. And I hope that you hear what she says, is that there are moments in life where we need to be open enough to ask for advocacy, for people to come in and people to help. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not, you're going to be there the rest of your life. It's a moment. And it blesses others to be able to bless you, and you bless others by being able to help them. That's the reason why we have community. Gladys, this has been so amazing. I appreciate you coming on the show. For those of you who are listening, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend. It's absolutely an incredible episode. And it's so great that I get to have people on like Gladys, who truly do love, care, and advocate for people, to make them the best, bring out the best, and to give them opportunities to really shine in their life. Until next time, be more, see more, and experience more than before.